Hey, good morning. Thank you for this very nice introduction. So you've heard I'm a drummer playing in a rock band, so I'm used to way much smaller stages and people who are booing at me and shouting. Yeah, yeah. So I'm coming here on stage with a pretty big goal I have set to myself after being part of all these great talks in the last 1.5 days. I want to inspire you. I want to inspire everyone here in the room to go home after these 2 days and rethink a little bit the quality assurance and the testing you are doing for your conversational AI. And if you allow me, I like to play Captain Obvious. I'm telling you now, conversational AI is software, and software needs to be tested. Even I, many years ago at the Technical University in Vienna, learned that we should spend at least 1/3 of our project budgets for quality assurance and testing. So I'm asking you now here in the room, whom of you is spending 1/3 of your conversational AI project budget for testing? Raise your hand. So now look around to your left and to your right. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the answer to the question, why do we see so many annoying bots out there? And I think we all know more annoying bots than great bots, yeah? Meaning those who are really a piece of art. Good. I have 10 minutes. This is a 20 minutes talk. So I have to rush a bit. The introduction will make short. The key information is the drummer thing. So actually, I'm a rock star being locked in the body of an engineer, unfortunately. But to be serious, the key information is here. Yeah. The topic of testing and automation for conversational AI is rather big. We won't be able to answer everything here or outside at our stand. Please contact me or someone else of our team. Again, Captain Obvious, this will come again and again. Test automation works at scale. Humans can't. Yesterday in the panel discussion, there was a lovely lady, I think from Barclays, Sonia, not sure if she's here today. She told us something like they have 1,000 intents. Yeah? So everyone here who is working on training data knows, well, a big bank, for every intent, they might have at least 50 training phrases, maybe 100, maybe for some parent intents 200 or 300. Well, let's say in an average case we have 100 utterances per intent, means that we have 100,000 test cases to test in our regression, at least. This is the foundation. Yeah? We should make sure that the stuff that is in our training data that we are already expecting is working. I mean, if this doesn't work, we don't have to talk about unexpected cases. And then I heard yesterday, well, we have some manual testers, QA, outside at our stand. A lot of people were telling me this. How do you test 100,000 test cases? Regression means you have to run it with every change you do. You want to make sure that your bot is still working like it's intended to be. How do you test this? The answer is simple, it's impossible. The only solution here is test automation. Test automation is the key enabler to success for conversational AI. And I'm coming now a bit to the big problem QA departments are facing with conversational AI. Chatbots usually have no limits. We all know these web widgets where you have an open input field. People can ask everything, meaning that the number of test cases is in theory infinitely large. I mean, if you are now a bank, of course you don't have to be able to answer what's the actual weather in London or what's the name of this cool band this guy is playing in. But no one wants to hear this fallback intents. Sorry, I don't understand. Or it goes further. We see our clients here crashing, revealing confident information and stuff like that. Yeah? And this is one of the big challenges. And yesterday someone told me outside, well, we are limiting this. We are using quick replies and buttons. Yeah? Well, that's all true. But still, you will end up in thousands of possible conversation flows usually. Give an example. I did a proof of value with a client last week. They're using Dialogflow CX as NLP engine, and they have 27 dialogues defined in Dialogflow CX, and I thought, oh, that's an easy one, this POV, yeah? I saw 17 intents, that's also not a lot, and then I saw, oh, roughly 650 utterances in 20 utterance files, and I was like, okay, could be a bit tricky, yeah? The thing is, in these 27 conversations, the first step, saying hi to the bot, 250 different options. Next step, saying I want to lock my credit card, 300 different versions of doing it. Yeah? Every dialogue was like 30 steps. You have to multiply these steps to end up with all the permutations for the test cases. The outcome is 3.5 billion test cases. for 27 dialogues built in Dialogflow. And this is where our business value comes in. Botium generates 3.5 billion test cases like this. And this you can't then do manually. This is the value of test automation. Talking a bit about ROI, the KPIs are speed, quality, and cost. The formula to calculate it for test automation in general is savings divided by investment. And then if you have to sell it to your business, usually consultants would show you this long tail ROI curve of test automation. Pretty cool. Everything here is savings that we have from test automation. What is uncool and blocks a lot of companies from starting it is this peak at the beginning. At the beginning with test automation, you always have to invest, you have to compose tests, you have to generate test data, you have to enable your DevOps team to run these tests continuously, and this blocks a lot of people. And actually on this slide, I have exactly what I just said, creating test data. When it is about conversational AI, also doing the analytics, creating reporting for it. These are initial investments you have to do. What if I tell you now, there's one tool on the world, I'm not saying names, but product placement. I put on some weight lately to make it easier to read, just for you. My girlfriend is not so happy about it, but yeah. What if I tell you there's one tool that puts your green check marks everywhere? What if I tell you there is a test automation tool that auto-composes the tests for you? It's just being said, we generate these 3.5 billion tests that auto-maintains this test for you, meaning that we have heard a lot of conversation designers in the last 2 days. You change your conversation flow, Botium detects this, updates the tests automatically. That creates tests for you that are completely decoupled from your training data. So you can do something like telling us, well, we are in the domain of telecommunication. Show me the top 100 intents of our competition. Show me what clients out there are asking telecom bots. Yeah? This is what you get. Also, all the analytics reporting we do, we automatically generate the pipeline integration to enable DevOps with the goal of shifting left this whole thing. That's another slide. I don't want to make this a pure product marketing thing. Just to give you an idea, we are supporting every major NLP engine or bot building platform out there, more than 50 at the moment. We are considered to be the leading industry standard when it comes to automated testing of conversational AI. We have 400,000 users using this platform to test conversational AI, and we are combining everything you need to deliver flawless chatbots. Maybe I'm getting too heavy as this thing is. Yeah. Meaning that we are doing continuous regression testing to make sure your bot gives accurate answers. We are doing continuous analytics. This is NLP testing to permanently check your bot's language understanding. We have full end-to-end testing included. Yeah? So these 3.5 billion test cases we generated are running first against, who is here, I think, Cognigy and Boost AI. Yeah? Then we take the same test cases and say, well, run them against browser, run them against mobile, run them against the whole browser farm or device cloud. Use them for doing performance tests, do security tests. All these things are there, and more or less you just have to say, yes, I want to do it. Yeah? It's a codeless platform. Good. And the cool thing is, when all these things are done for you, composing tests, maintaining them, coming up with test data, this curve dramatically changes. Yeah? So from the moment when you start using our test automation suite and starting to use it means we connect to your Cognigy account, to your Boost AI account, to your Watson, Dialogflow, whatever, immediately you will see the long tail ROI. Yeah, we are hitting here values like 90% of test automation coverage, 80% of reduction in manual testing. And by the way, a sentence to this. Yeah? In manual testing, you don't have to record even test coverage. Yeah? How much can you test manually from 3.5 billion permutations? Nothing. Yeah? Cut testing time up to 95%. These are typically values we see within our clients. And apart from that, there's way much more above and beyond pure ROIs. Yeah? Test automation is there to bring you quicker into the market, also to quantify quality risks and so on. I really like this comment from Tom DiMarco. Quality is free, but only to those who are willing to pay heavily for it. And then here the last one is super important because this is our DNA. At Cyara and Botium, we are standing for customer smiles. We're helping our clients to deliver customer smiles to the end users. And yeah, this slide doesn't really fit in, but when I was preparing this deck a month ago, this Blender bot thing just happened. You might have seen it. Mark Zuckerberg's new bot says he is creepy and manipulative. Well, this is why we are testing, to avoid these things. So this is just a funny one. And finally, I'm coming to the topic of this talk, the true ROI of chatbot test automation. So it's not about cutting costs of manual testers. It's not about purely time to market and stuff like this. It's about making your chatbot spotless. It's about creating a really unique customer experience. This is what people, millennials out there, are expecting because we know that technology is good enough to do it. Yeah, I don't want to see a bot telling me, sorry, I don't understand. I yesterday couldn't check in online to my flight, and the bot of this airline, I'm not saying names, but it's a British one, he told me, did I reveal something though? I said, I cannot check in online, and the bot said, send an email to, and the email address. Yeah? Well, I don't need conversational AI to give me an email address, to be honest. Very important, avoiding losing talent. Imagine you are working as a test engineer at the company. You're getting this 1,000 intents to test, and you figure out pretty quickly, well, this means 100,000 test cases in regression. We should run it with every change, meaning multiple times a week. You immediately know you can cover maybe a few hundred of them. So you are in trouble from day one on. You know that you will never reach sufficient coverage. So if I'm working there and my project doesn't give me a tool to work here efficiently, I will leave, and this is what we see within our clients also a lot. Getting to the release stage faster is again the time to market thing. And then finally, it's about avoiding stranded investments. So a lot of clients are coming to us and are super disappointed because, yeah, last sentence, because someone told them from these big AI providers, well, use conversational AI, and then in your contact center, your bot will be able to handle 80% of all the incoming requests, meaning that no human agent has to answer them. You save billions of money. Yeah? And people come to us and say, well, it's 7% that our bot can handle, and not 80. Yeah? And that's the thing. Technology behind is great. All these bot building platforms are amazing, but if you don't test and assure the quality of your bots, you will never reach or get into this era of this 80%. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Any questions?
Just take questions.
I think we have a question up there and one back there.
So do this one first, do this one and then come to you.
Hi, I've used Botium for a while. I'm a fan of regression testing. You use quite a lot of provocative numbers there. Just a little challenge on them. So 3.5 billion test cases on Dialogflow.
Yeah.
How long does that take, and how do you manage the API cost for those?
Yeah, that's an amazing question. So the thing is, you have with all bot platforms some quota limits. Yeah? Actually, in a typical Dialogflow account, we can push through 10,000 API calls per second. So if you quickly divide this, it means the tests will run 1.5 years. Yeah? So therefore, the question is great. What Botium does here is you can say, well, instead of taking now 317 utterances there, and in the next convo step 400, take 10 randomly. Yeah? Take 15, take 20, then you run this time, these 60,000 test cases, in the next round, these 200,000 test cases. And these numbers we execute like this, yeah, on an API level. This is what we do there. That's a special case. This was the biggest test set we ever generated, to be honest. Yeah, usually test sets have something between 100,000, 200, 300,000 test cases. They are going through rather quick. The company who was asking for this POV doesn't care about the costs, and more I cannot reveal there.
I think we can do that. One more we had, yes. Yeah.
So my question would be around, so in our company we have engineers working on a platform of the chatbot, then content working on changing the content of the actual bot. So do you handle differently changes in the actual code of the platform rather than changes in the content and
Yeah, absolutely we do. It might be also a different user of our platform. Yeah, so for developers changing code and so on, we have, for example, a conversation crawler inside that crawls through the conversation model, detects the changes and does kind of unit testing for you. Yeah, versus for people working on the training data, there is all this NLP analytics stuff and so on there. This is actually something, the insights that are generated there. You cannot give, let's call it normal QA tester, yeah? Because those people who were testing 10 years ago the online banking of a bank and then the mobile app suddenly should understand, hey, there is precision recall and an advanced score of an intent. Yeah? This is just a bit ahead of them, and therefore, yeah, we have different users, different purposes.
Wonderful.
Yes, please. Oh, that's a longer answer. She asked for it, don't blame me.
Maybe we can continue it later, yes. So thank you so much. That was such a relevant conversation. I know a lot of us in this room really deal with, so insightful. So next man needs no introduction. Many of you may have already heard of him or met him in the last 2 days. Kane Sims is going to be leading our panel for today, and I'll pass it over to him, and he'll introduce the wonderful set of panelists he has.
Hello. We don't have the mic working yet. I don't think the sound guy is just rearranged the situation. You don't have a deja vu. Being tripped over here in this exact spot yesterday. Yeah. Well, at least change your top. I've still got the same top on. It is actually a different top. I've got two. Cool. Well, thanks for joining us. This one's going to be interesting because over the last 2 days, this kind of conversation and question about ethics has come up quite a lot. In fact, most of the conversations today have kind of touched, even yourself, Ben, had kind of content in there that kind of touches on ethics. And so this is really a bit of an open session, to be honest. We're going to have a bit of a discussion over here around some of the ethical considerations, or lack thereof, ethical considerations in the development of AI solutions. But at any point in time, if you have any questions whatsoever or you want to get involved, stick your hand up, because you've all got a lot to contribute as well. So let's just keep it kind of a bit open for this one. I'm also conscious that, again, Tripta, we are the only people standing in the way of this lot and food. And so treat them nicely. So you already know Ben, you already know Christoph. They've just kind of given talks just now. Tripta, if you weren't here yesterday, Tripta, I don't know if you want to introduce yourself first of all, and then we can...
Okay. My name is Tripta Kumari, and I'm a UX designer, and I've been doing this for about 20 years. And I think I mentioned yesterday that my interest in voice came about when I was doing when I worked on a mobile phone, doing voice commands amongst everything else on this touchscreen phone. And then I was lucky enough to actually work for Nuance, where I worked with some very big corporations, creating sort of a multimodal interaction in voice.
Nice. Was everyone here for Ben and Christoph's talk? Was anyone not here? Okay, everyone's here. I think we all know these superstars here. Cool. So this morning, myself and Rob on our team. Where's Rob? Over there, dressed like a big banana. We're on our way here, and no word of a lie, you couldn't write this. Rob tripped on a banana skin and hit the deck, almost put his back out. I didn't really think that banana skins were actually even really slippy in real life. I thought it was just like a cartoon thing, but apparently they really are. But when Sonia was talking this morning about, she asked the question, for those of you that were there was a scale on the screen, and it was like a character, like a little funny character kind of representing some degree of personified AI. Then there was Brad Pitt in the middle, which was like almost like a deep fake looking thing, like a realistic person looking type of thing. And then at the other end was this robot that is very clearly a robot, but a personified robot. And the question was like, at what end of the scale would you be comfortable interacting with? And then following that, everybody said, I'd be happy to interact with this kind of like humanoid robot thing. And then the following question was, who within your organizations is actively considering the kind of, where do you draw the line between something being really human versus being quite clearly a bot? And it reminded me of poor Rob slipping on his banana skin, which is that the person that threw that banana skin is not really thinking of the person who's walking past. They've just thrown this banana skin. And I think that we do things all the time where we're not really thinking about the knock-on effects of what we do. We just kind of do stuff. And so we're working in creating conversational AI systems in IVRs, in contact centers, on websites. And we've heard from Paulina and this morning about digital humans. And it's like we're doing all this stuff, and it's really interesting and exciting. But as the question was, who's considering the ethical implications of this, and nobody raised their hand, it seems as though there's kind of a discussion. It's kind of being had, but it's not really properly being had. There's no real answers coming out of it. And so whether we'll get to those answers today or not, I don't know, but I think it's worth diving into it a little bit more. Like, are we quite clear? I don't want to put words in your mouth because I've already said that we're not. But what's your kind of vibes on whether or to what extent people are considering the ethical impact of what they're doing as far as creating AI? Ben, we'll start with you.
Yeah, well, I think maybe the way that I look at it is to think about the world I want to live in, and really that very big picture, the world I want to live in 10, 20, 30 years time plus, a sustainable world, a world that is trying to aim for more equality and trying to solve some of the big challenges that we've got. And then I kind of, I know that's very big picture thinking, but I do kind of sit down and think about that kind of stuff. And then I come back to, okay, what is it that I'm doing? What skills and knowledge do I have that I can share and maybe share with people and help, feed into technology that other people can use to create, in this case, like fun experiences? And how do I go about trying to highlight maybe the ethical challenges in doing that, or the ethical considerations towards the kind of future that I hope the vast majority of us kind of want in this world. So that's kind of linking the two. And so I think about I think about does in this case maybe the player or the user actually understand, like to some degree, what data they're giving to a system and what they're getting, and what the system's doing with that data, how long that exists for, who has access to it, and that kind of thing. And my personal opinion is that users should at least be able to get that kind of insight. And the same for the people using these technologies. So if you buy it, you license cloud technology or something like that, you have as a customer an opportunity to get some understanding of that and retain some control. I think it's to some degree about control, because obviously there's an awful lot of data out there moving around, and it's collecting, and it could exist forever. And I think. I think that for me it's about giving some understanding and control to the people that are using that technology, both consuming it and developing with it, if you like. That's not quite an answer, but that's at least an insight into what I'm kind of thinking about.
Yeah. How do you give control? Maybe Tripta, in your experience working with voice interfaces and stuff at Nuance, how do you give control and be transparent with an interface that is, the whole point of it is it's supposed to be really quick, really simple?
Absolutely. To me, it's really scary because I need that data. I need the utterances in order to do my job properly. And then you kind of rely on your own organisation, really, because remember, they keep it. I can only do so much. I'm gathering it, and I'm trying to work out whether what we're trying to do is going to work. Because the thing is, it's, you're caught between a rock and a hard place. I need that data. I need to know that, we've understood, the intent. I can only do that, and because I'm doing the voice stuff, and even we're translating it as well, and doing the text stuff as well. So I need that data. I find it difficult. I just hope that we have the systems in place, the security in place. We've already to protect it, but also to make it known to our customers that we are holding it, and that we can't say, oh, that was you on that day, you know, so it's sort of strip all that other stuff out. I have to rely upon our organisation being transparent in what is held and what is then sort of kind of secretly protected.
Yeah. Somebody earlier on mentioned, I think she might have left the room now, but she said that the line for her was when the AI will reveal information that she wasn't expecting it to have. Right. Like you're in the middle of a conversation and it asks you like, how was that chicken sandwich yesterday that you had and stuff like that. It's like, well, how do you know that? And lots of people will say stuff like, you know, I was having a conversation and my phone's been listening in. Next thing you know, I'm getting advertised to on Facebook or whatever. I don't necessarily believe that, but there you go. But Christoph, you work with a lot of data, as you've just kind of explained. What are the kind of, you know, are there considerations from your clients and knowledge from their customers about the kind of, you know, what data is being captured, how it's being used, where it's being stored, how long it's been stored for, etc., etc., etc. Where do you see people's understanding being as far as that?
Yes, definitely they are. And this is why we are trying to add our part, for this. Well, what are the key values of AI ethics? I think it's transparency, as you mentioned. It's privacy, it's security. It's about treating everyone equally. And for exactly those things, we have added test types in our test suite. You can test if someone that is talking to your bot from Asia gets the same answers as someone talking to it from California or from London. So this is what we do, and we see our clients really considering these things and appreciating. Of course, when a new client comes in, this is not the first goal. They usually have different problems, but that's definitely something they do, especially when we're talking about privacy. GDPR testing is something that is getting bigger and bigger, and clients in America are now realizing, oh, if someone is accessing our bot from Europe and talking to it, we also have to be GDPR compliant. It's not this thing that is this monster that is locked in Europe. So yeah, we're doing a lot there, and I try to emphasize this within our team, because I strongly believe that conversational AI will take more and more part in all of our lives in the future. And I don't want to live in a world where these things are not respected.
It's interesting, you can't really talk about ethics without also talking about privacy. And it all comes down to, I think, that whole question of expectations. What do I expect this thing to do, and what's it really doing? Like the example of the Echo device that is watching you, basically. You know, the camera is watching you regardless, sort of thing. And there's like, you know, Mycroft has got the ability to like wake up its assistant just by gazing at it, gaze detection and stuff like that. So the camera in some shape is on all the time, whether people know that or not. NVIDIA's got some capabilities where you can do the same sort of thing. You know, if you're driving, whether you should be looking down or not, who knows? But if you do look down, the assistant will wake up. And so there's kind of like, there's a bunch of things that maybe people don't understand is going on behind the scenes. So maybe there's an expectation thing. But also, as people start to interact more with these assistants across different channels, and Alexa gets more human-like, and we see more robots and stuff like that, they begin to, part of what makes them smart is their ability to do things like that, detect if you're looking at them or not, mimic your kind of body language and stuff like that. But at what point does it become almost like fooling somebody that this is a person? Like some of that, I mean, Cohen, I'd be interested to get your thoughts on some of the voices. You know, we saw the Google Duplex example. Sounds very much like a human. Some of the WaveNet voices and the deep learning models that read speaker and others have sound very compelling. Where does the line go between kind of like, does it matter that people might think this thing's a human when it's not? Like, should there be a clear, distinctive line, and this is an AI you're talking to right now? Like, is that important, or do people just want, as Stephen mentioned earlier, just to get a job done? It doesn't really matter. What do you reckon, Ben?
Well, I guess with maybe games it's a bit different, but I think when you start to think about what the metaverse might, the kind of shape the metaverse might take, and say for instance you've got a virtual travel agent in the metaverse, but is acting very human-like and starting to share opinions on, I don't know, a travel destination, or starting to talk about previous trips you've been on and that kind of thing. I guess that starts to get close to a human-like experience, whereas in a game world you might sort of expect it to be a bit more, fantasy or a bit more, sort of.
More obvious, isn't
obvious, yeah, obvious, and also, in some ways deliberate as well.
Yeah.
So I wonder if, and I don't know the answer to this, of course, that's why we're having the discussion, but I wonder if it to some degree just comes down to whether the user or player understands what they're talking to. So if you had a call coming in and it sounded like a human and it was actually a computer but it pretended to be a human for the entirety of the call, and you finish up that call and you've given away some data, that doesn't feel ethical or responsible from the person using that technology. I'm sure some people will exploit it that way. But if the call starts, I think a bit like the duplex demo with, this is an automated service, even though it sounds very human-like, is that really an issue if it sounds very perfectly human? I don't know. I think my gut feeling is maybe that's not an issue, but then maybe what happens with, I think through communication and through conversation, we do share a lot of what's immediately being thought in our minds, just like I'm doing now. And you don't necessarily, when you're writing text, you maybe think about what you're going to write and what you're going to share, even the replies you make to a bot, or think about a health bot of some kind. You might think a bit more about the replies that you give, or a customer service bot or something. But when you're speaking in very natural human language and you feel like you're talking to a human, you might release more information. So what happens if you then decide you're not comfortable with what you said on that call? I think maybe that I haven't seen that discussed or sort of treatment strat. I guess we're not quite there, with having
to remove data.
Yeah, I think a lot of data, as I mentioned in my talk, comes out of what we say. We heard in the Roche talk as well about extracting sort of sentiment and emotion from speech as well, and that data is all being stored somewhere. So last week, Ben felt really unhappy at 7 o'clock on Friday morning because he tripped up on a banana skin as well. And then but you know what I mean. So all that data is being collected. We want to have a good service with the company that's providing us that interface. Let's say some virtual GP or something, but what if we decide we're later not comfortable with the data we shared? I think, and GDPR to some degree sort of addresses that with personally identifiable information. And then I start to think, and I'll stop talking, but I start to think about what currently falls under PII and maybe what should fall under PII. Are our thoughts personally identifiable if you put 100 of them together? For instance, I mean, just thinking out there.
Depends what you think about as well.
Yeah, bananas, obviously, and avoiding them.
Yeah, but it's true. Like, your personally identifiable information is your voice.
Yeah.
And if you're talking to a human, you got a question there? Yeah. Oh, cool. Have we got a mic somewhere? If you're talking to a human, we'll come in after that as well, because I'd love to get your thoughts on this. If you're talking to a human, it can go in one ear and out the other. It's not being stored and then being able to be interrogated and put against your profile to be checked against next time you call. It's not being mobilized. It's just going, if you share something with a customer service representative about the fact that you've got a child and you're taking them to football practice, so you can't make that appointment on Saturday morning, they'll just say, okay, I'll just change it. Whereas an AI system would be like, okay, kids, Saturday morning, unavailable, let's never talk to them on Saturday morning again. So it's like there's so much data that you can do with it, and it's that difficult. But Christoph, you mentioned there, we're talking about where do you draw the line, and we'll come to you in a second, mate. Where do you draw the line between what is an AI, what is not? And you were saying that it's context dependent and use case dependent?
Yes, gosh, to be honest, the use cases that I see from our clients were like, Jesus, this is cool, are usually the ones that are collecting this data, that are trying to be very human-like. I gave you an example before outside here at the buffet. I was last week after a band rehearsal pretty late at night jumping with my friend into his car, and it was rather cold. We had some cocktails, and I told him well, my bum is pretty cold on your leather seats here. Yeah? And we were having then a conversation, 10 sentences going back and forth. Yeah? And when he said the last sentence, the car was like, may I turn on the seat heating for you? So the AI, first of all, the creepy thing is it was listening to us, obviously, all the time. But the next thing was out of a very, we were talking there in slang language after a few cocktails, and I just said, it's cold on my bum. So I'm not sure if this utterance was trained like that. Yeah. The virtual assistant in this car could identify this intent, and it could identify, hey, these two guys are having a conversation. I'm not interrupting them now. It waited till we were finished, and then exactly in the right moment, it was like, may I turn on the seat heating for you? And I was like, Jesus, this is a world I want to live in. And the next thought was like, Jesus, this car is recording everything, and I'm having business calls in this car and so on also. Yeah. So the question I was asking myself, if this car manufacturer gives me the option to turn this feature on or off, what would I do? Yeah, I'm most probably the guy who has it on, and every time when I get a call or something, I have to turn it off somewhere, and I would fear that it is not really off. Yeah, so drawing this line is hard. I can tell you from our client base that we have black and white. There are a lot of clients who are putting a lot of efforts into making bots pretending to be human. And it starts with easy stuff like you ask a bot a question, the answer is there like this, and instead you see Toby is typing. Yeah, things like that. Yeah, but at the end of the day, for me as a user, it makes a better experience. Where it goes too far, this is super creepy. I'm not sure if the guys from Alexa are still here who were there yesterday, but I read you can train there your own more or less voice profile with the voice of someone, and Alexa will use this voice then, and the use case is to overcome a loss. Yeah, so your grandpa is dying, is lying in the hospital, you go there, record a few sentences of him, and after he is dead, this should help you because Alexa will speak with his voice. So for me, this would be super creepy. Yeah? I'm sleeping, Alexa wakes me up with the voice of my dead grandpa. This is for me the line where say I'm.
Yeah. We had a question at the back there. If you can remember what it was, I know it was a while ago.
Yeah. So, can you guys hear me? Okay. Yeah. So the question that I had was in regards to. I remember a few years ago, MIT, they got that moral machine where they were like, all right, do you hit a cat or a dog or this and that, right? And it was like a nice discussion, but there was a lot of things that came out with it where they said, all right, who should be making that decision, right? Mm-hmm. Right? Should it be government entities? Should it be politicians? Should it be left all to the corporate companies and be like, all right, you guys decide where to draw the line as to what's ethical and, what's not, right? Or should it be like a standardization organization that's like, around the world? I just wanted to ask you guys, like, what do you guys think should be the, who should be deciding that?
Mm-hmm. That's a very good question. Talking about privacy, have you been slipping into my phone and reading my notes? That's a very good question. So who should, Trip, to start with you, who should be either enforcing, upholding or responsible for the ethical use of AI?
I think it's all of us. I don't think you should leave it to any one government or organisation, because organisations are going to think about the ROI. Governments, well, depends which country or which part of the world you're in as well. So I think it's a difficult one, and us as human beings, I think individually we need to think about this, we need to talk about it, we need to highlight it. We shouldn't forget that this is a big issue with recorded device. If it's recording you. I've never worked on something that automatically records. I just wouldn't do it because you need to invoke it. You know that you're making that decision. And then even with when we're listening, to the conversation, why didn't it go right? What went wrong? Did the engine not hear it? Did we not sort of transcribe it correctly? We as an organisation, we have a right. We need to protect your data. We need to make sure that we don't know who you are. That's key. But going back to that question, I think it's yeah.
I have maybe an example. Yeah? We can take GDPR. It's about privacy, and there the European Union tried to regulate this. Try out, you all know bots. ask 10 bots something like, do you save my data? And see which answers you get. Yeah, I can tell you already that 9 of 10 will say, sorry, I don't understand what you mean. Yeah. So the thing is, yeah, what do we think it's better? The other thing is what will work. Yeah. So what we see is there is a cap of these fines in GDPR, and for some companies on this world, if they pay 70 million fine, they don't care. Yeah? They prefer to have the data and save it. Yeah? So the question is, will it work if this is coming from some government? I'm totally with you. We as a companies, we are the builders of bots, and we should take care and responsibility.
What do you think, Ben?
Yeah, I think I echo the same. I mean, policy, national government policy, I think sort of, takes time to develop and to put into place. And this technology that we're using now, and we're collecting loads of data, and we have been for years in different ways. And I think that it is conversations like this. I mean, where do 50, 100 people that are working with this technology, specialists in this technology from all different fields come together for a period of time to think about this? Like we all have busy jobs, lives, etc. We've all got objectives to deliver to, KPIs, etc. Lots of, things to think about. And I think it's this kind of session and these kinds of events that allow us to step back and think about the human side of technology.
Yeah, it all seems a bit fragile to me, though. That let's just leave it up to us because we're all fallible. There's a really good video on YouTube. You know Tony Robbins? There's an old video of Tony Robbins, and he's talking about this situation when he was in one of his first sales jobs, and he went into this house and he was selling cassette players, but like the boom boxes that you used to have on it. Yeah. So he's selling them, right? And the idea is that he sells cassettes, monthly subscription, as many cassettes as you want, pay a fee, order whichever ones you want, we'll send them every month, send your old ones back, all that kind of stuff. And so he goes into this house and he's talking about how he was trained to sell this product, and he's talking to this couple, and he's saying, do you like music? And like, you like music? Yeah. Who's your favourite artist? Oh, I like, Michael Jackson, Bee Gees, all that kind of stuff. Okay, well, we've got some Michael Jackson, Bee Gees. Do you listen to music often? Oh, yeah, we listen to music all the time. Yeah, or not as often as we'd like to. Okay, well, what's stopping you from listening to music more? Oh, well, we just don't have the facilities and stuff like that. It's quite expensive. Okay, so if music was more affordable, would you buy more music? Oh, probably, yeah. And what if you had like a price that was like unlimited music for a certain price? Like, what would that be like? Oh, that'd be good, yeah. How much would you pay for that? Oh, I don't know, about $30. $30, okay. So if you would pay $30 for unlimited access to music per month? Yeah, probably would do, yeah. He said, well, we've got unlimited access to music for $30 per month, and here's all the tapes and stuff that we have and all that. Oh, yeah, I love that, yeah. Well, you just said that you would pay $30, so can we sign you up? And oh, no, I can't do that. Why not? Why? So you're telling me that you would pay $30 for unlimited music, but we've got that here and you won't sign up. Oh, well, the thing is we don't have a way to play music in this house. Ah, well, what if I also told you that this, and he pulls it out of his suitcase, tape player comes free. And he basically backs this customer into a corner so that they've got absolutely no objections left and forces them into this kind of sale arrangement. And he made the video to say that this is really bad practice. But it got me thinking, how, not easy necessarily, but it's not beyond the realms of possibility that AI systems are not just capturing data and using data and recording us when we're not aware, but actually we can program, corporations can program, or individuals can program a conversational AI to make decisions, to potentially manipulate people, to deny somebody a service. Like if you think about the government that might create a chatbot and you can renew your passport through it, and all of a sudden the AI is telling you, I'm sorry, you can't have a passport, or it's a benefits assessment thing, and the AI is telling you, I'm sorry, you're not entitled to benefits. We've now got machines based on certain inputs that are now making decisions that affect people's life. And so it becomes a much bigger question. That's why going back to whose responsibility is it, I just feel a little bit like if left up to individuals, that's a bit of a frail choice, because you can't necessarily trust everybody to always do the right thing. I don't know if you have any thoughts on. There's a bit of a ramble. There's no real question there, but any thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, I think in terms of AI decision making, my limited experience of that is that generally you can request a human to review the decision and pick through how and try and understand why that decision was made by the system. So I guess there's this kind of recording, what inputs went into the system to determine the outputs, and being able to understand the system in the first place, which is probably a whole different topic. But ultimately, being able to defer to a human if you're not happy or you feel you've been treated unfairly. And I imagine that the objective of companies that are using AI for this kind of decision making, they want most of the decisions to be, to some degree, what the customer wants as well as what they want as a business. So I guess there's maybe that process of bringing a human into the conversation, if you like, too. But going back to kind of just stepping back very briefly to the earlier point of, who should take this on. I think that there's a sort of legal. When I think of that, I think of sort of terms and conditions and legalities and law and what we agree to when we use a lot of these services and systems and how broad that is. First of all, how in truth hard it can be to digest that information, even if you really try and take time. But also how little detail there really is about what's happening to your data. So maybe we need high-level policy like GDPR around the processes for handling and allowing customers to understand what other data is being collected and how it's being stored and your right to review and delete, etc. And we need to apply that. So at a high level, we need that. But then as technology implementers and going from one person to big tech, they have to figure out how to implement as they are. And as you referred to GDPR and how companies are having to work around, work with those criteria into their systems. The companies have to take. So yeah, maybe it's these kinds of conversations that need to get this out there in order to then lead to broad policies on processing this kind of information and more coverage of the kind of information that's processed.
Yeah, it's very hard, isn't it? In that example there of escalating it to a human, you need to know that you can do that.
You barge in.
Yeah,
literally as I did.
Yeah. But you also need to know that that's possible. Like I went through something recently. I think it was like financing a car or whatever. And because I'm self-employed, they wanted certain details from me, but they didn't tell me, so I had to ring them to find that out. So then I sent it, and then it was declined. And so I rang them back. I was like, "Why is it being declined?" Like, because you didn't provide this. I said, "Well, I did provide that." So I had to ring them back again after I provided it a second time. And I was like, I provided that kind of information. And then they said, "Oh, well, if you want to, you can escalate it." Yeah. Which I did, and it's fine, and we got it approved. So it's like, I didn't know you could escalate it. I had to call them 3 times. So if someone gets denied something by AI, they're not necessarily going to know they can challenge that, which is, you can tell that it's not being fully figured out, which is why it's such an interesting topic. And we've got a maturity assessment at vox.world/maturity where you can kind of go through this process, answering about 15 questions, and it will give you where you are on your conversational AI maturity kind of scale and give you some advice on what you can do next. And one of the questions in there is, how will you describe your ethical policies as it relates to the use of AI? And out of about 160 submissions in the last few months, hardly anybody is considering the ethical use of AI. And so I don't think we've resolved it today. Who knows when that kind of thing will be resolved, but I think it's definitely something that we need to be considering.
One of the things I do with Alexa is I actually delete everything that I say to her. And I know I'm not improving their engine, but you can do that. You can literally delete stuff, and they don't have to be collecting that data because I don't know where that data is going. I don't know how they're using it, so I delete it. Yeah. And with the stuff that Nuance does and continues to do, you can barge in. If you're not happy about it, you can go straight and talk to a real live person. So there's ways and means you can actually sort of break into it. But you have to know about these things. Exactly. You have to be in the business to know how to actually exploit that information. But then you've got that catch-22 situation because the engine learns from all these utterances, that's how it gets better. So, and then I'm now going in and crashing it and saying, you're not having my data. So there's ways and means that you can actually delete stuff.
Yeah.
But you have to take ownership of that.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thank you for sticking around. I'm conscious that there is food outside that
Yes.
we are preventing you from getting to. There's some nods down here like, yes, we're starving, get off stage, Kane. So cheers. I'm more than happy, I'm sure we all are more than happy to continue the conversation out there because it is a very interesting one indeed.